And ironically, it began to break down because of people's belief in the power of prayer and in the idea that the purer and simpler the life you led, the more likely God was to listen. And since monks were supposed to lead purer and simpler lives than anyone else, their prayers were seen as a hotline to God. Rich folk and warriors began to pay monks to do all the praying they were too busy to do for themselves. Prayer became a commodity. It gained a commercial value, and that was to prove the undoing of the whole system. It was a pretty rough world outside the monastery walls. After all, fighting men were professionally engaged in the business of breaking commandments, especially that one that said, "Thou shalt not kill." A warrior's soul was not an easy one to save. In fact, it required a strenuous effort by a significant number of people to pray his way out. After the Battle of Hastings, for example, the church demanded 120 days of penance for everyone killed. William the Conqueror, in his lifetime, must have been responsible for something like 10,000 deaths. That's about 3,300 years of penance. He wouldn't have finished yet, not until the year 4,366. However, if the work was split up amongst a couple of hundred monks, William could have his soul cleansed in less than 18 years. So he founded a string of abbeys to pray for his soul. In fact, anyone who had any money would deem it only wise to invest a bit of it in the innocence of monks. And far from living lives of extreme poverty and discomfort, monks began to find themselves as rich as Croesus. The monks of the abbey here benefited so much from various kings that they owned the entire county of West Suffolk, as far as the eye can see, in every direction and further. They built this town of Bury St Edmunds, and you can still see how the abbot carefully planned it on a grid, just like New York. Every single commercial transaction involved a cut for the monks, whether you ran a barge on the river or a stall in the market, or sold fish, or supplied building materials. The abbey administered justice and pocketed every fine it took. It ran the royal mint. Being abbot of Bury St Edmunds was literally a license to print money. The abbey even owned the very horse droppings on the street, and the monks took their cut of that. As a rich landowner, the abbot of Bury was supposed to marshal a small army for the king. Well, Abbot Sampson had no problem with that. In 1193, he personally donned armour and led his troops in the siege of Windsor, fighting for Richard I against his brother John. The poor old St Benedict and his rulebook must have been turning in their graves.